Hello everyone, so I'm back on this garden structure. What I've come to do today is start doing some feather boarding. I've been to the timber merchants this morning because like deja vu, look, I've got 70 lengths of 175mm feather boarding. This is a barn black, it's sort of pre-blacked, so you know, that saves a bit of work because it's obviously got an undercoat and I think a base layer actually of black on here. So first job is I'm going to pick whichever wall I'm going to do, move the temporary brace from the outside to the inside, and then I've got some membrane that I'm going to put on first. Then I've got to rip a little batten to go at the bottom of the first course just to kick it out. It hasn't got a bit of featherboard under it, and yeah, then we'll just start cracking on and I'll talk through, you know, how I'm going to space things out and gauge things up as I go. So let's get a lead out, get the saw out and rip this tiny batten down first. So I've just knocked myself up some timber wedges out of this treated timber, and I've just got a little sort of jig that I'll make here. I'm not going to show you how I'm doing that because there's no guard on the top, and you know, I know people have already moaned at me because I'm not using the guard, but there we go. You know, if you do that, if you take the guard off the saw, you do it at your own risk. So I'm just going to use these little wedges, as I said earlier, to put in because the slab. Oh, hello, what's here? Look, a little puppy. No, you can't have that. Go on. I'm going to put these... What's that? Oh, that's the end of that then, is it? I'll get another one, doggy, shall I? Hey, can I have that back, please? Can I have it back? No? Thank you, mate. So what I'm going to do is just take... these are just softwood wedges, and what I'm going to do is just stick in these treated ones in here. I'm happy that they're underneath this prop here. As I said, because the slab... angles away, it's still the bottom plate is still tight down on the concrete pad, so I'm happy that when I put those in there and I'll cut them off, that'll give plenty of support. So I'm happy all those wedges are in there now underneath this packer, so I've done that all the way along, so I'm happy that that's supported. Obviously it sits down tight on the concrete on the inside, so, and it's all screwed together and bound together. When I get it all boarded up on the outside, boarded up on the inside, this will be sort of nice solid unit. So I'm just going to nip along here now and just nip these off with an old saw, because obviously I don't want to go into the concrete with my new one. And then we can start getting this little sort of kicker batten on the bottom and get some membrane on. Enough. So I've got this little bit of an issue with this bowed slab here. Now normally, if we imagine that this is my featherboarding, normally what I do is hang the featherboarding so it would hang down past the bottom of the slab, just the sort of weatherproofing. But obviously if I do that here, I'm going to have this sort of awful sort of kick out, which I I don't think it's going to look good, even though it is, you know, against the tree, and it's probably not even going to get a lot of weather. So what I think I'm going to do is just bring, just around the back here, I'm going to bring this course down sort of flush with the slab here. And what I've done, just as an example there, I think I'm going to tack a bit of DPC along first, and then my membrane will come down onto it. So then the featherboard will sort of sit like that. And then maybe just see what I can do with this. It's just going to stop the weather from getting in there. And I know the courses won't quite run right, because I'm going to, on the other 3 sides, I'm going to leave it hanging down. But I can adjust the first course, you'll see what I'll show you when I come to do that. So yes, I don't really want to sort of start cutting and grinding this off to get my boards on, so it's just going to have to sort of work with this a little bit, I think. So I'll get on with that now. So time to put this little kicker batten on, sort of a little bit of lath really. That just goes on the bottom, and basically what that does is holds the bottom side of the first board out, because obviously it's not got another board up underneath it. So it just sort of, I call it a kicker batten, but it doesn't really kick it out, it just keeps it in the right line. So I'm just going to put that on there flush with the bottom and pin it on. So that's that little batten on, that kicker, lath, whatever you want to call it. Next job is to put this membrane on. So I'm just going to run that round, staple it on, and then we can start looking at some boards and get set up for some boarding. So the time's come for me to start having a look at this boarding, and I just wanted to go through with you my sort of theories on this feather edge boarding and how I set it out and what I'm looking for when I'm doing it. So what I like to do, if I've got an opening here, and this is a fairly standard opening, it's about 2.1, and what I like to see is as your boards come up, when you get to the top of a window, a door or a doorway, I like to see a full course go across the top of that opening. I don't like to see when it's cut out, because to me it looks like it creates a weathering issue. And I know, you know, say this is a 175 board and most people have an inch lap, so they would just start at the bottom, 150, 150, 150, and just and as it came up the wall, you know, the course that went across the top of the opening would just come where it come. And you know, if you have to cut some out of it to get over the window, so be it. And then a soldier liner piece goes round it. Like, as I said, I prefer to gauge out your courses so that it works a full board across any openings. Now, of course, there's limitations to this. If you were to have a doorway, say for instance we had this doorway here, but further down where the window and it was lower, then obviously that's different. You'd have to something would have to give in that scenario. I mean, if you were really clever, you could gauge it so the window was exactly your gauge lower. But anyway, that's what wherever I can, that's what I like to do. So I'm just going to quickly show you how I go about gauging this out. So what I've done, I've just mocked this piece up here. Eventually what will happen is when the featherboarding comes through the end here, there's a finishing piece goes on here, and there's a finishing piece goes under here as well. So that'll be like 18mm plain stock. So that's that line there, and then I like to finish this down about 10mm below that. Now what I've done is we will also finish a little bit, maybe 10mm or so lower than the concrete here. So I've made a measurement from just below this concrete up to the underside of this board, which is, you know, a full course, and that is 2 meters and 20mm. Now what I do is some simple mathematics to gauge out what my coursing is going to be, and I'll show you. I've worked them out here in true carpenter style on a piece of wood. So we've got our measurement of 2 meters and 20, as I said, and ideally we've got a 175, although this is actually a 180 board. So ideally we want 150mm coursing, which leaves a 25mm lap. So if you divide 2 meters and 20 by 150, we get 13.46. Now obviously that's not a round number, so we can either decide to round it up or round it down, and what I'm going to do in this instance is round it down. So now what I'm going to do is take that number and I'm going to divide 2 meters and 20 by 13, and there's the figure that we get 155.3 mm. Now basically, if we set our gauge to 155.3 mm in exactly 13 courses, it'll come to 2 meters and 20 and work exactly right. So this is slightly over. I like to go 150 or below, but again, because this board is slightly wider, this is a 180mm board, we've got our 25mm lap. So I'm happy to gauge this at 155mm. Let's say we went the other way and I rounded this up to 14. I think it would bring it down into the sort of 140 something odd mils, 145, 146 mil. Or maybe 147, I'm not sure, and that's a little bit too tight for me, and you're squeezing an extra course in, which is unnecessary. So again, that's just gives you an idea, a little bit of mathematics, and then what you end up with is a nice even coursing from the first course right up to the course that goes straight across any openings. So what also I've got to do though here, because we know this is out of level, I'm going to get in a bit of bother here, because I'm going to have to put the first one out of level and then slowly bring them all back up until maybe the third or fourth course. I'm going to have to stretch these courses, I should say, to try and, you know, make up that bit that's out of level there. So I'll have to maybe stretch those first few, maybe 2 or 3 courses, and then we'll get back on our gauge and off we go. So let's crack on with that. What I've done here is taken a bit of time to make a gauging stick. It doesn't take long, and it's the sort of thing that I can use when I'm doing all of this featherboarding, and it just helps me keep on track. All I've done is I know what my gauge is, 155.38, and what I've done is just put that into my calculator, added it to itself, and kept pressing equals, and I've just marked that all the way down there. What I've also done now is put a little piece of timber across the top here, which I just hook on top of the plate up there. And again, one of the reasons I put so much effort into levelling this base is that I know that plate is dead level now, so that in effect is my datum point. So basically all I do now is I'll just hook that on top of that plate there, and as you can see, there's the measurement that is the course that goes across the top of the doorways, and now I can either transfer all of those marks onto the studs, or I can just you know, keep an eye on it as I'm doing the boarding. Again, just a few moments to make a little rod like that. You know, it just keeps you on track. It's not usual to do it like this because the roof would normally be on. A lot of the time I actually make a rod like this and I'm working from the bottom, but it just helps keep you on track, like I said. So now we've got that, we can actually start putting some boards on. Completed that side. It's much quicker actually when you've got someone to help you. You may have noticed what I did is I stretched out I think the first 3 or 4 courses because we know that this slab is low. So I've stretched out those sort of first 3 or 4 only by 5 mil to make up for the sort of 25 mil it was low. So you know, you're never really going to notice if I stand back here. You know, these first sort of 4 courses are 5 mil bigger than the rest. You're never really going to twig that, and they won't shrink so much that that will cause an issue. You know, the laps may be only 20 mil instead of 25. So yeah, you'll also maybe notice that I started to pre-drill some of the ends before I fixed them, because I started off all right, and I would normally pre-drill you know, where the joins are because it splits out. And I started off, they weren't splitting, but I started to pick up a few you know, splits here and there. So I've started just to pre-drill those, because although, you know, most of the time it's okay, you don't want to see those splitting, and they may only open up even worse. I'm all right on this one because this is the you know, this really is the back of the building. Look, it goes up against this tree, so we can get away with it here. But you know, it's good practice to pilot drill the ends first. So I won't put any more up there. We've got enough of a lap that we can lap another bit of membrane on there. This is obviously gable end, so what we'll do now is we'll just carry on round, bringing them all up to the same height as this. So just thought I'd mention, I didn't mention before I started, that I tend to work left to right, so everything works centres, in this case 600s from my left hand side all the way through. But what I do is I just fix this little bit of batten on the end here as basically a stopper for me to stop my boards up to more when I'm working on my own. Actually, I can just butt the board straight to it and I know that it's in the right position. So yeah, I just thought I'd quickly mention that. So what I'll do is just unscrew this now and put it on the other end and get going from over there. An opportunity presented itself today to gauge out these boards slightly different to how I normally do them. Normally, you know, the roof is on and the eaves on and everything, and I pretty much gauge up from the bottom. So it's worked quite well, and I think it just goes to show really that in carpentry there's so many different ways of doing things, and you know, it's best not to get rigidly stuck in your ways and be a bit adaptable. And obviously I've adapted a different way of just let that plane go, that's really loud. In carpentry, I think you've got to be adaptable, and you know, you can do one thing a certain way for years and years and years, but then you know, the circumstances are slightly different, and it presents a different way of doing it. And you know, this way actually it's been quite easy today. I haven't had to get any little measuring blocks out or anything, and of course, you know, all the effort I put into leveling the plate. Obviously, I've got a dead level datum to work off at the top there, so you know, all of these boards, I didn't get my level out all day because they're just gauged off the plate, which I know is level. So, you know, another reason really for once you get, you know, get level and get upright, it makes it so much easier. So you'd have seen how I put the first, the bottom course in, went with the slab, which we know is out of level here, and then basically what I did, I mean, this end was right, but then what I did, you see me pinging the chalk line, what I did was stretched out the first 3 to 4 courses by sort of 5 mil each over here until we got back on gauge. Now, you know, technically, you know, the gauging slightly bigger this end than it is this end on the first 3 courses, but you're never going to notice it, and it gets us back to level within 3 courses. So, you know, sometimes, again, you have to sort of be a little bit adaptable, and you have to, you know, nick a little bit here and squeeze a bit there to get what you want to get. So, but you know, by the time we get 3 or 4 courses up, we're back on track. Right, that's the end of another fairly successful day. Actually, got on quite well today. Had a bit of a late start in terms of I had to go and pick all this featherboarding up, but yeah, it's gone really well today. We've got quite a lot done. What I'm going to do tomorrow is finish the other side, and then really important job to do now is to get this thing bolted down, you know, resin anchored down, because there's only probably a dozen screws and plugs holding that whole thing to the concrete at the minute. So there's no wind forecast for tonight, which is great, but the first thing I'm going to do once we get that backside boarded is get this bolted down so it doesn't go anywhere, and put some additional braces across the top just until the roof comes. So I'll come in tomorrow, we'll get a bit more boarding done and get this resin anchored down.